Hello, 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 and welcome back to another edition of Fan Talk, your favorite podcast by your favorite fan. That is me, of course, Kyle Brenchley, in the house on this Tuesday. Welcome, welcome. If you are new to Fan Talk is a podcast by the fans, for the fans. You can find it anywhere you get your podcasts. We are just talking sports, and it's a fantastic time of year to be talking sports, college basketball, NFL free agency, the World Baseball Classic, and MLB opening day coming up soon. This and so much more on Fan Talk. Again, welcome. Fan Talk is a podcast you can find anywhere you get your podcasts. We got the sign, we got the Rogue One posters, we got the Oklahoma gear because it is college basketball's shining moment. It is conference championship week. I'll be explaining that, why that matters, why that's different from NCAA March Madness, and the implications for teams to get into March Madness. We'll talk a little bit about NFL free agency. It is still going on. A lot of big names on the move, new faces in new places, and I'll tell you about the World Baseball Classic. Maybe you haven't heard of it, but it's a fantastic way to kick off summer and to kick off the MLB season. All that and more on Fan Talk. Thank you so much for tuning in. All right, guys, let's jump into bracketology, NCAA tournament, college basketball. It is March. We're in the thick of it, and it is conference championship week. So before teams actually make it to March Madness, that's the postseason tournament, they play in their conference tournament. So once the season is over, you play the teams in your conference tournament to determine who is going to be the champion of your conference. Now, why does this matter? Because the champion of your conference gets an automatic bid into the March Madness postseason tournament. So if you win your conference tournament, you automatically get a spot in the big dance. And as you know, spots in the big dance are limited, especially this year, with a lot of teams on the bubble, a lot of teams thinking they deserve to be in, a lot of fluctuation that can happen with these conference tournaments. I'll tell you all about it. It lets teams who are smaller, teams who are not as competitive, who are is not the big names, not the blue bloods of college basketball, gives them an opportunity to punch their ticket to the NCAA March Madness Tournament. For example, there is a conference in college basketball called the Ohio Valley Conference. Their champion this year is the Tennessee State Tigers. They went 23-9 this year. This is their third NCAA tournament appearance, their first since 1994. So it's been over 30 years since they were last in this tournament, and they punched their tickets. From the Northeast Conference, Long Island University Sharks went 23-10. They automatically qualified because their opponent in the championship game, Mercyhurst, they're not eligible for the NCAA tournament. They haven't been a Division I team for the required amount of time. So this will be their 8th appearance for Long Island, their first since 2018. Northern Iowa making it to the big dance for the first time since The High Point Panthers, their second straight appearance to the NCAA tournament out of the Big South. Queens University out of Charlotte, actually. It's not in Queens, New York. It's in Charlotte, North Carolina. This is their first ever NCAA tournament appearance in the school's history. So it's really cool. These small teams, these teams you've never heard of, these schools you've never heard of, get an opportunity to make the NCAA tournament with these conference tournaments. So shout out to the local teams, BYU and Utah both playing in the Big 12 tournament. BYU currently projected to make the NCAA tournament even if they don't win their tournament. They've had enough wins during the season. Utah needs a miracle at this point. They're the bottom of the bracket. Utah State in the Mountain West, they're the number 1 seed. They're favored to win the Mountain West tournament. They're the season outright champions, but they're not the tournament champions quite yet. That hasn't quite started. They're currently safe in a lot of projections to get into the NCAA tournament. But if they win the whole tournament, then that's a guaranteed spot. Plus, it doesn't allow teams to steal bids. Now, what does that mean? So there's teams who are in these conference tournaments like BYU who's already projected to make the NCAA tournament regardless of their performance in the conference tournament. But then there's teams who are on the bubble, and so they're kind of on the fringes. That if they win a couple more games in the conference tournaments, they can improve their resume and perhaps get in. But if they lose, then they're probably on the wrong side of the bubble. So if these bubble teams, or a team that's not even on the bubble, an absolute Cinderella, just comes out of nowhere and wins their conference tournament, then they're called a bid stealer. They steal one of the spots at the big dance from one of these bubble teams that are hoping that their name gets called on Selection Sunday. So conference tournaments are big. They're huge. They're so important. Wins improve your resume. Losses get you on the edge of your seat. There could be bid stealers. There could be upsets. There could be all sorts of drama. It's fantastic. It makes March one of the most intense and awesome months of the year. People are like, nothing happens in March. Are you kidding me? Everything happens in March. March has got to be a top 3 month for me. Honestly, I'm not even kidding. Top 3 out of 12, top 3. Hot take right there. But it's a very fun time of year. As I mentioned, some local teams that have kind of secured their spot, BYU, Utah State, also Utah Valley. Utah Valley, they're currently in the WAC, the Western Athletic Conference. They're currently projected to win their conference tournament. But if they don't win their conference tournament, let's say a team like UT Arlington or Utah Tech or another bid stealer, Tarleton State, if they somehow win their tournament, then they get that. And Utah Valley, even though they had a very good season, they're in a lower conference. They're in a lesser conference. They probably won't make it. Their only chance is to win their conference tournament. So the stakes are so high for these smaller conferences, these teams that probably this is their only shot to get in, is to win their conference tournament. The stakes are so high, and it makes for a fantastic, absolutely incredible time of year. I want to shout out a few teams that are making a splash, that are doing very, very well, that aren't necessarily the Blue Bloods. I want to talk about Santa Clara out of the West Coast Conference. Now, the West Coast Conference, as you may or may not know, has historically been Gonzaga's conference. They've ruled the West Coast Conference. It's Gonzaga year after year. Sometimes St. Mary slips in there, but it's usually those two teams, right? Now, Santa Clara, they made it to the championship game and will play Gonzaga tonight. The winner gets an automatic bid. If Santa Clara wins and gets an automatic bid, then that's a bid steal, because currently projected, only Gonzaga and St. Mary's are projected to get in from the West Coast Conference. But if Santa Clara wins, then they steal a spot from potentially these other bubble teams like SMU, VCU, Auburn, Indiana, Virginia Tech, New Mexico, Cincinnati, San Diego State, Oklahoma. These other teams that are in the mix. That game is tonight. Again, this episode's coming out on Tuesday. Perhaps when you watch or listen to this, we will already have a champion for the West Coast Conference. Santa Clara, that's a team that you should be watching. As I mentioned earlier, some teams that got in. The Furham Paladins, these teams that punch their tickets. You never quite know. Are these teams going to get blown out? Or are they going to pull off an upset? No one was watching the High Point Panthers throughout the season. Nobody was watching Queens University throughout the season. So you never quite know, but it just makes it super fascinating. You can head over to ESPN to get the full bracketology preview and follow along with conference tournament, the bubble watch, and all the action that you need for this March. It should be super fun. I'm super excited. These next couple weeks are going to be the best weeks ever. Let's shift our focus to the NFL. Now, the NFL is like that one child who they're everyone's favorite and nobody denies it. And they get all the attention. And no one hates them. Everyone loves them. But there is that part of them that is a little petty. When any other sibling gets any sort of time in the light, any sort of recognition, the NFL is like, oh, but hey, look at me. I have a doctorate degree. I went to Harvard, right? The NFL, they're like, okay, the March Madness is going on, the World Baseball Classic, NHL, NBA, like it's their time in the light. But hey, we're going to open up free agency and you're going to look back at us. And nobody fights it. Nobody fights it. NFL is king. I want to tell you about some free agent signings, some big names. There's been so much going on. It's been a huge offseason. But let me tell you about some of the big names that have kind of moved on, kind of moved around. It seems like a lot of people are on the move this offseason. Romeo Doubs going to the Patriots. That just happened today. Geno Smith going back to the New York Jets. Mike Evans going to the Niners. That's a huge one. Crazy move there. A lot of players moving around. Obviously, Kyler Murray got cut by the Cardinals. Where will he end up? Devin Lloyd, formerly on the Jacksonville Jaguars and Utah University alum, goes to the Panthers. Rashid Shaheed is staying with the Seahawks. Kenneth Walker is going to the Kansas City Chiefs. Isaiah Pacheco is going to the Lions. Travis Etienne is going to the Saints. So many moves that are happening right now that it almost deserves its own episode. Tua Tagovailoa going to the Falcons. The Dolphins signed Malik Willis. Just quarterbacks, wide receivers, running backs, O-line, defense. All these guys are on the move. Absolutely crazy. go get all your NFL free agency coverage over on ESPN. It should be fun. All right, let me tell you about the World Baseball Classic. Now, maybe you've heard of this, maybe you haven't. No, it's not the Olympics. No, it's not the Major League Baseball season starting. It is the equivalent of the World Cup for baseball. Now, it's not quite as big as the World Cup. The World Cup is the biggest event, I would say, other than the Olympics. There's the Olympics, there's the World Cup. They're up there. This is baseball's version of that. So teams from all over the world come together. They, similar to the World Cup, they're put in a group or a pool, and you play the teams in your pool. And based on your record, you can qualify for the next round. So the United States, of course, are in it because baseball is America's pastime. And they're pretty loaded this year. This is the 6th iteration of the World Baseball Classic. It started back in 2006. And the idea, it would be like the World Cup. They'd play every 4 years. But it didn't quite happen that way. They played in 2006. I think they played in 2009, 2013, 2017. But then they didn't play again until 2013. So there was a big 6-year gap there. I don't know if COVID threw it off. But essentially, play it every couple years. Last time in 2023, Japan won, of course, with Shohei Ohtani playing against the United States, striking out Mike Trout and hitting home runs in that game to secure the win for Japan. They've won it 3 times out of the 6, so Japan is kind of the favorite when it comes to baseball in the world. But the United States roster is pretty loaded this year. They brought out the big guns, and not just the hitters, but the pitchers too. They got Paul Skeens, of course, from the Pittsburgh Pirates. They got Tarek Skubal. They got Clay Holmes, Clayton Kershaw, the old man, Matthew Boyd, Mason Miller, David Bednar, Logan Webb, Ryan Yarborough. They got all these guys. They're bringing out the big guns. They got the big dumper, Cal Raleigh, Will Smith, Aaron Judge, Paul Goldschmidt, Bryce Harper, Gunnar Henderson, Bobby Witt Jr., Byron Buxton, Pete Crow, Armstrong, Kyle Schwarber. They've brought out the big guns. It's actually really fun to watch. Of course, the United States games are usually televised. Some of the other countries aren't quite as televised, but Major League Baseball has a lot of players from outside the United States. A lot of guys that play for Puerto Rico, a lot of guys that play for Venezuela, a lot of guys that play for the Dominican Republic, for Colombia, for Japan, for Korea, for the Netherlands. That's a surprising one. But it's very fun. Go check it out. If you're looking for something to do tonight, the United States are playing Italy tonight at 7 p.m. Mountain Standard Time, 9 p.m. Eastern Time. Go check it out. It's super cool, super fun. It's a great way to get you back into the baseball mood because, of course, opening day is just weeks away. The end of March. Holy cow, we're so close. It should be super fun. Go check it out. Take me out to the ball game. I can't wait for those summer nights under the lights with baseball chatter, some Cracker Jacks, a hot dog, and good vibes. Good stuff. All right, guys, that's all I got for you today here on Fan Talk. Thank you so much for tuning in. If this is your first time, please like and comment and subscribe down below. If you're watching on YouTube, if you're on Spotify, please leave a review. I'd appreciate it. And go enjoy conference tournament weekend. It's going to be a wild 3 weeks, so buckle up and let's ride. All right, guys, we'll see you next week for another edition of Fan Talk.